Kibera slum. It's different and the biggest of its kind in Africa. With people drawn from different backgrounds, all united in their quest to beat the odds and change their lives. Amid a grinding poverty and neglect, theirs is a life driven by hope for survival, engineered by 3 P's: patience, passion, and perseverance. Join us on Look Up TV as we shine a light on Kibera's untold stories.
Welcome to the Diaspora Fusion. My name is Rachel Anyango. In today's discussion, we'll be talking about the diaspora investment, some of the investments that Kenyans in the diaspora have been making into the country. We are looking at some of the challenges that they've been facing both abroad and here in Kenya in terms of investing. And we are also going to be discussing some of the remittances that they've made and their importance to our economy. And I have a guest here with me who is going to help us discuss this more. We have David Kahara. He's an entrepreneur. He lived in Dubai for 5 years, came back to Kenya, and is currently investing here in Kenya. Karibu sana, David.
My pleasure, thank you.
All right, so it's great to have you on the show. Before we started rolling, we were talking about your experience in Dubai. You went, made your money, stayed there for some time, came back, and you chose to invest here. If we talk about some of the investments that Kenyans abroad have made back into the country, most of them choose to invest in land and property. You looked at something different, and that is the avenue that you went towards. Please talk to us about that.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Well, depending on my take for investing in the business sector, is slightly different because I had chosen to quit from the previous employment which I was in. So I opted to go into business because, you know, business takes more of your time. It needs you to be close to run it. Unlike when you invest in an asset class like land, in most cases you don't have to be there. You don't have to be there physically to monitor. That is, you know, if you want to develop it, you don't have to be there physically. You know, and for most of the reasons that most people tend to go to land, because you find it's more tangible. You have something to look to. You know, after your many years of working, you want to come back home and know, at least I bought some land somewhere, I've put in an establishment, I built a home for my mom or for my family, or also for investment. So that gives you some sense of security, you know, because sometimes you find work can come to an abrupt end without you getting to know if your employment is secure and all.
And you chose a different direction, so talk to us about the direction that you invested towards and why.
Okay, well, actually for me, I have a passion for cars, so I decided I'll go into the automotive space, and so I decided to come up and set up a car wash. And so since I've grown up knowing that, you know, the number of the fleet of cars that coming into Kenya, I found that to be a space which is accommodative, is competitive enough to give you a niche for your market. So I decided, let me set up a car wash, let me observe it for some time and get to see the returns. And so far it's been good, can't complain, because the demand has been good, because based on the time that I started the operations, whether it's in on low season and high season, on average, business has been quite okay.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Based on some of the experiences that other Kenyans have shared, someone here said why I think investing in the diaspora needs a large amount of capital. I want you to talk to us about that. If we were to compare investing in the diaspora, investing here in Kenya, talk to us about your experience and what you think about this statement.
Okay. First of all, I feel when you want to invest and you're investing back in Kenya, it's a much better space because you're able to monitor on what you're investing. Because you don't want to put your investment so far from where you can be able to look through how the growth of your business is going. And looking at the capital investment, in the cases where you look at, for example, like in Dubai, if I was to set up the same business, like for the car wash business, it would require me to put up much more capital because of also there's a legal framework that comes to it, there's the financial bit, because also looking at where the country is and the Emirates, you find they're slightly ahead in terms of their marketing strategies. So you find you have more clientele who are actually coming to Dubai for vacation, for shopping and all. So we're also looking at it in the reverse, that we want to do the same for Kenya. So when we have like the, visitors coming in for tourism, so we have spaces like you can actually bring them on board and let them know, hey, you know what, we can actually be able to give you like similar details, like, you know, into the car wash business. You know, you come in, visit our country in form of the tourism, for example, or if it's the sports and the culture space. So people are able to come and actually understand that there's actually a good niche, quite a good niche, when you come to explore the market in Kenya. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you made many friends when you were living abroad. So again, if we go back to the topic about investing in land and real estate as a preference for most Kenyans, do we say that there's a lack of uniqueness and creativity in investment ideas?
Well, not so much of that, because looking at most people who are in diaspora, the majority, the good number of Kenyans living abroad, like for example, the statistics that we have is about like 3 million Kenyans actually living abroad. Some in the US, the UK, Australia, and all the other regions. In this case, you find most of them are committed to their employment, to their contracts. So you find they do not have much of the time to go into business. So you find they opt to actually have an asset class that is able to help them, you know, while still in employment, they're able to make some returns. And so right now, with, you know, the government coming up with like the activities which are being showcased, like now what CBK is going to do, we're having a forum and a survey coming up in February or March. So people will be giving their various ideas on, you know, what are the areas they'd like to invest in. Because sometimes when you find it's monotonous and there's so much demand for land, so you find more people want to, you know, they find like it's maybe land is overrated, so they want to try a different space. And so you find the introduction of you know, other asset classes, for example, fixed income, or you have people going in to invest also in some form of, let's say, shares, you know, fixed deposits and stuff.
Okay, great. Again, is it hard to be successful as an entrepreneur in Kenya versus abroad? You have friends who have also ventured into business here. They are abroad, some are here. So you guys, of course, you discuss, you share the challenges that you have. So tell me, from the experience, from your own experience and from your conversations with your friends, from your circle, is it hard to be an entrepreneur here in Kenya versus abroad?
Well, that's a bit of a trick question. But again, I would say the challenges could vary. Mostly depends on the space that you're looking at. Sorry, you find some of the spaces that people want to invest in. You find some of the spaces are quite, you have so many people going into the same field. For example, if we have companies that are going into real estate, for example. So this existing company A is in real estate, so you want to come again and open a company B, which also ventures the same ideas, still real estate. So I think the challenge that is coming in is there's a whole structural aspect of it in terms of going into business. So you understanding what you want to do.
Yes.
Of course, you understand the challenges that come in that particular space, and then you're able to navigate through that. I wouldn't say it's easier or harder, but you know, with the timeline that one would want to stay in the business, there is that curve where it tells you at a certain time business would actually be facing its lowest moments or like its highest moments. So just getting to understand what you want to pursue is able to give you that persistence in that particular field. Yeah.
Okay. Now, CBK is to conduct their first ever diaspora remittances survey that is between February and March. And they say that their aim is to increase the remittances into Kenya. But then again, there's so many Kenyans who are abroad or many who returned who have fears about double taxation. Already when you're sending money into the country, you're being taxed. Again, this person who's the recipient of this money may be taxed. Okay, so you tell me, what's your take on this?
Well, actually, I think there's a legal framework that the government is taking up in terms of regulating, like avoiding the double taxation. And in this case, that's why you find most people opt to actually invest in other items. For example, you'd bring in a product that you can actually convert it into cash because you're trying to avoid the event that will be, you'll be taxed twice. And now with a proper framework that is going to be regulating, like avoiding that double taxation, it also gives a morale for the diasporians to send more money and also have a way of contributing back to the economy. Yes.
So when you were abroad and you were sending money back home, how would you say, how did you feel about in terms of the taxes? Was it too heavy for you people who are abroad, or is it just fair?
Well, at first, because at the time I was there, it was, you know, we had an influx of people moving to diaspora. So around that time, the structures were not there, the demand was not there, so at least the services that were being provided even by the telcos, it was a bit expensive. But now when there's a need and you see that we have quite a number of people who want to send money back home, and then that's the point where the telcos come about and they're like, okay, so now there's a need for regulating in terms of the pricing, and then they're able to adjust the rates at which you're able to send money back home. So moving in the last few years, I feel it's been very fair. It's been very fair, in terms of sending remittances back home.
Okay. Yeah. Again, if we're talking about sending remittances back home, clearly agribusiness and money from the diaspora is what has been keeping us afloat during the pandemic, because according to CBK data, Kenyans abroad sent home more than 337 billion in 2020. That was despite the economic way down of the COVID-19 pandemic. So based on these statistics from CBK, the diaspora seems to be doing a lot for Kenya. But then again, there's a question about corruption. High-level graft has been the norm in Kenya for quite some time. Does this mean that Kenyans can be independent under leadership that is free from corruption? Because if you compare the amount of money that they sent in, if there's no corruption in Kenya, can we be independent?
Absolutely, I would say yes. But I say it's the structure. It's an ongoing process to root out graft. You know, I wouldn't talk much about it because I'm not an expert in that. But what I can say, at least the few actions that we've seen being taken against the cases of graft, you know, some which are ongoing, some which already have been completed, we feel hopeful in terms of those structures that the government is taking up. Talking about the amount that has come into the country, you know, during the pandemic, there hasn't been much spending, I would say. For example, in countries, in the people who are in the diaspora, they were not participating in so much of, it was not normal it was not like a normal lifestyle when the pandemic hit. Everything changed. So we had tendencies where you would spend, there's time you want to go and visit the malls, there's the time you want to shop and have that extra comfort.
Yeah.
But when now the pandemic comes in and you know you have a family back home, you know, looking at the situation, how the other countries are handling the situation in the country you're residing, you feel you're in a much advantaged position than when you reflect back and look at Kenya, for example, in terms of the healthcare, you know, structure. So you feel obliged to send, you know, more money home to make sure that your family is a bit stable, so that they are not hardly hit with, you know, during that pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the contribution of the diaspora in terms of skills, expertise, transfer of knowledge. When you went to work in Dubai, what field were you ventured in when you were there?
Well, when I went to Dubai, I was working in the hospitality industry, so I was working as a concierge, and the space is very, you know, it's, you know, my understanding of Dubai, the way it has positioned itself, it is a global. It is sort of created this global environment for everyone to come in and feel, you know, they can shop, they can travel, they can explore. So going back to the question about the expertise, I feel as we're trying to tackle the issue of unemployment, most of these countries that offer us the opportunity to work abroad, they give us better packages, for example. Like working as a concierge in Kenya would not be paying as much as I would get in Dubai. So for the same position, I'll probably get the same job in Dubai for like 3-4 times the salary. And you see, looking at the provisions or what comes in the package, I'll probably opt to go and work in Dubai. But you see, where we normally go wrong as a country is because you find some of the people working abroad, they have better experience, they have better knowledge of the fields they're working in, and unfortunately there's no reintegration program where you find somebody has been working in Dubai as a doctor, maybe as a teacher or lecturer, but when coming back to the country, in the event that they lose their job with the country, like the host country, they are not able to be reintegrated back in the country because you find it looks like you're coming from a more privileged position of working abroad, you know, versus having to grow your way up when you're in the country. So sometimes you'd come in and try and look for the same opportunities in Kenya, but you wouldn't find same allowances, of course, because our economies are different. And also that aspect of, you know, the government coming in to let you know, okay, we understand that you're back in the country, this was your area of speciality, how can we help you in terms of growing your knowledge in terms of the same field? Or if you'd like to explore, I mean, and give more information in that particular space.
Okay, that's great. It's good that you've talked about that, because that again brings me to my next question. How can the government help the Kenyans who are from abroad coming back into Kenya? They want to have those investment opportunities, or even like get jobs back into the country if they've lost their jobs abroad. How can they be helped?
Well, actually the government is playing its part, but I feel it can do better in terms of, for example, like those reintegration programs, and also giving like a wide variety of asset classes where actually people in diaspora can be able to invest in. Case in point where you have, you know, like when there's actually a policy paper which is dated 2014, which talks about some of the issues that the diasporans are going through. Like, for example, you have an issue where if you look at the labor force, for example, there's a bit of mistreatment in some of the countries, you know, in the Gulf countries, and the government is actually coming in with policies that stating they need to look through the agencies, like the agencies which took some of these Kenyans to work in those countries. Do they have a follow-up to know, you know, when a contract has ended, does the agency is even concerned, or they just want to get the fees and then they'll let the person go and get the job and forget about them? You know, so there's that part where the government comes in form of regulation. I feel that's an area where mostly we feel like the government needs to do more. And in terms of repatriation, for example, early in the pandemic, we have people who were stuck in countries they didn't have the provision, like you know, the necessities. So that's the point you call to the government. You're like, you know, we have Kenyans who are stuck, and that's why we call for your assistance in those areas. Yeah, and also when you look at in terms of the aspect of investment, I think also it's at this point we feel, since the remittance that the people in diaspora contribute to the Kenyan economy, which is about like 3%, it begs the question that if the government can actually come about with something like a trade tool, for example, like a diaspora bond, where the diasporians can be able to, you know, send in money knowing that there's this particular kitty or this tool or this particular, you know, investment class that they can actually be able to put in their money knowing that it's secure, and the government is able to give them proper information in terms of the returns and the dividends and all that.
Yeah, that's good that you've mentioned that, because we have seen so many Kenyans who have gone abroad, worked for many years, but when they come back into the country, they're completely broke. How can we help them tap into the investment opportunities back home, so that when they come back, they are financially independent? So you've mentioned the issue of the diaspora bonds. Any other idea?
Well, just looking at the framework, if, for example, if there's like a retirement policy or like a retirement plan for those working. So, for example, you find in times where people have, like, the government is doing so much right now, you know, putting up the framework, but you find people who've been working abroad for quite some years now. And by the time the government is putting up some of these very great ideas, it's not too late, but you find there's some classes which at some points they might not be able to be captured very well. For example, there's somebody who's coming home for retirement. What is the plan for the government? And this person has been working abroad for all these years, maybe 15, 20 years. When they come back, if in the two unfortunate cases where you find somebody is probably has fallen ill and lost a job, or for example, there's they go through like a job loss. These people, if they come back to the country, they have to work their way up to get to the same place where they had been. And you know, it might be a bit unfortunate, because by the time they're getting to where they are, it might be too late for them. So when you have a structure where the government is able to accommodate them and have forums, for example, in the host countries, and let people be meeting and getting to know what the government plans or have in mind for the people in diaspora, I think that would bring more efficiency in terms of the communication, and also those structures, the legal aspect of it that is able to guide people in their diaspora.
You tell us from your own experience, when you were there, ulikuwa unajipanga aje? How are you getting yourself organized so that when you came back, you didn't come back broke? You just came back and immediately you decided, now this is the business that I want to venture in. I already have my structures in place. Let's roll.
Well, I wouldn't put it like nilikuwa nimejipanga. I would just say it calls for sacrifice. There's so much, you know, there's so much things someone would want to do with their life, especially at a very prime young age. You want to explore, you want to have fun, and sometimes saving is not in your priorities. But when looking forward to what you want to be in the next 5 years, because at the time I realized we had so many people who are losing jobs, and that's when it clicked to my mind that, you know, you have a colleague this time and then the next minute they're not working. I mean, companies are redundant, you know, they're actually laying people off. And it's a wake-up call. I do realize, you know, I need to actually put up a plan. I need to save. I need to figure out what I want to do next in the next 2-3 years, if not 5 years and beyond. So it calls for discipline, also understanding that even as you work through what you're projecting to achieve in the next few years,
yes,
you have to start now. It's not too late for anyone to start. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have more of this conversation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Kibera slum. It's different and the biggest of its kind in Africa. With people drawn from different backgrounds, all united in their quest to beat the odds and change their lives. Amid a grinding poverty and neglect, theirs is a life driven by hope for survival, engineered by 3 P's: patience, passion, and perseverance. Join us on Look Up TV as we shine a light on Kibera's untold stories.
In this life, we all walk through loss, heartache, and disappointments.
Our eyes are opened, our ears are opened, our hearts are opened, our minds are open, so that God can speak to us directly.
God is with us every step of the way.
So when you see how they were transformed through their relationship with Jesus, their encounters with God, it changes me.
Turn your 50 bob into $1 million shilling investment. Changamka and Shindagari Chap Chap with Hometel. There's millions in shillings worth of prizes to be won. Send your 50 bob to paybill number 4040153 and get a chance to win 20,000 shillings daily. And each week, one person gets a chance to walk away with a Mazda Demio and another a Beth Mobility motorbike. Remember, the more times you try, you could be the winner of a fantastic Toyota Prado. Do not be left out. Send 50 shillings to paybill number 4040153. Account name Look Up TV and get yourself a Hometel lucky number. Changamka and Shindagari Chap Chap with Hometel promotion. For more information, visit www.shindagari.co.ke. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Diaspora Fusion with me, Rachel Anyango. Today in studio, we are talking about the diaspora investment. We are discussing some of the investments that Kenyans in the diaspora have ventured into and why. Back here at home, some of the importance of the remittances from Kenyans living abroad. What is the importance of the remittances to our economy? We are also discussing some of their challenges that they faced both abroad and here in Kenya when they were investing back home, and comparison in terms of investing in the country versus abroad. So with studio in me today, we are talking to David Kahara. He's an entrepreneur. And David, when we went on break, we were discussing this comment about someone who said, before you invest in Kenya, first invest where you are around the world. The systems in the diaspora work. Investing in Kenya is very risky based on my own experience, and that is from someone who is abroad. So you were talking to me about this. Just take it up again.
All right, so basically what the impression that some of the people in the diaspora have, because sometimes even when you look at probably the news media, for example, when you look at the news, you hear there's a corruption here, there's a corruption here, and sometimes you wonder, if I'm sending back my money for, to put up a project, will it really come to fruition? Because you have cases where you have entrusted a family member to actually run a project for you. And then unfortunately, all they tell you is, there's this need that came up and, I wasn't able. So you end up being frustrated. You've put in your sacrifice, you've been in employment, you've been working tirelessly, but you don't get to see the fruits of your hard work. Because sometimes you find a probably, even if they accomplish whatever project you desired, it's not going to be to the details of how you liked it done, So we have cases where people have lost monies when they send them to their parents or their guardians or their relatives when they wanted to invest for them. And you see, and that's why we have some of these companies which are coming up, and they're really doing an incredible job. They're actually coming up and, pitching tents to the diaspora people, and they're telling them, what, listen, you don't have to have the worries of having to do all the search, having to go through the hassle. We can help you, go through this phase of developing or, going into a particular project of interest. We actually just take you through the model of what you're doing, and then when you buy into the idea, then they give you the plans of how to actually actualize your dream. So I feel it's been a tough experience for those who've actually lost money during those exchanges of wanting to say that you do well. I mean, you want to empower your family members, or you want to have something when you come back from home, or in the event you lose your job. But again, you find it's not actualized. So it's sort of a bit unfortunate, but now having with these structures that the government also is trying to regulate, and also like you said, the forum which is coming up is going to give more information to the person in diaspora. I can actually tell you there's this project that is coming up, like one of the key pillars of the government, which is like the housing. And they tell people in diaspora, hey guys, this is what's going on, all right? So they're able to give them, updates basis on how far the project is gone. So that is able to even motivate people in diaspora to even save more, and also have confidence in the government that, as I put in my money, it's not going to come about and you have a scandal also on the same project that I'm actually going to sacrifice and put my money in.
Actually, when you talked about sending money to family and relatives back home, we had a case of a lady who went to the UAE. She worked there for some time, and the working conditions for the ladies there are not as good. And by the time she was coming back home, she was thinking she's been sending money for a really nice home, and she came back and she found that there's nothing to show for it. And this lady just committed suicide. And she was a mother of 2, actually, because she's been sending money to the mom and the brother so that they can put up a nice home for them. But now when she came back, there's really nothing to show for it. But then again, let's move to, there's a question that someone sent about why should transferring money from a bank abroad to a local bank result in taxation? You stayed abroad, you came back. I don't know, how do you feel about this?
Well, there's, like I had mentioned, this is something the government is looking into, because you find you have like the tax treaties which some countries have with Kenya, but not all the countries. So you find some of the banks, they have charges which are slightly higher, because you see doing international transfers, and you find there's not a specific agreement which is there between the two states. So I think that's something the government also ought to look into, so that you also don't end up losing money when you're sending, and also somebody loses money also at the point of receiving the same. So for you when you were abroad and sending money and you were being taxed, you didn't really feel like there's a problem with this? Well, you see, at some point, like I'd say, at some point when you when we were sending the money at that time, we had so many people. We didn't have so many people in the diaspora, so you find the charges were quite expensive, but you did not have another alternative way of sending money. But now with the many mediums of sending money back home, we have many channels. We have the telcos coming in. It makes it a bit. The space is a bit competitive, so you find the rates are a bit fair. Yes.
Okay. Again, I have another comment here from someone again who said, "You are right. You cannot invest in Kenya. You will buy a house or a plot, and then you find out the plot or house is in a place that has not been authorized by the Bureau of Land Management. Don't waste your hard-earned cash in this corrupt country. The corruption in Kenya is mind-boggling, and they think money grows in trees abroad." I am talking from experience.
Well, I understand that person stating that, because you find you've committed so much, like it's all your toil. You've put it into, having to get a better tomorrow. But you feel like after you've put up a project, after you've bought that piece of land, and then a few years, few months down the line, the government tells you, "Hey, by the way, you're actually on government land," for example. So this is also because there hasn't been much information about the areas of investment.
Yes.
Because you find most people have popularized the idea that you have to buy land to actually seem stable. In as much as land is a good asset to invest in, but it's not the only option. Yeah, because also we have people have different risk appetites. If somebody feel they're like, some of the people buy land, they want to actually just leave it there for speculation. And some of the people giving the ideas to the people in the diaspora that they want to get them this piece of land, you'll be shocked when you come back to the country, the piece of land where it was, they took pictures by the roadside, they tell you, there's a school coming up, there's a college nearby, it gives you this idea that it's a very nice located place, like it's well situated.
Yes.
But when you get to the ground, you find the road has not been tarmacked. It's like 15-20 kilometers from the nearest tarmac. There's no power, there's poor infrastructure. So this also brings about the frustration that you're thinking you're gonna settle there, and so you find it's a bit depressing. But that's why you have to vet through like on government side. Sometimes you find there are people who are registered, registered land dealers, who can actually see some of the projects they've done, and they've actually been able to give people, an expectation of what these people have been longing for. Like what you've put in your sacrifice, you can actually see the fruits of your labor.
Okay, let me read two more comments from people. Someone says, "Ain't it funny? Some hardworking Kenyans in the diaspora send billions from their hard-earned funds to the country, while some lazy leaders loot local resources and stack them abroad in euro, dollar, and pound accounts." Someone else said, on investment ideas, most Kenyans seem to be investing in real estate. Why not trash and garbage collection? Why not create job opportunities? Construction has been around since the Roman times. Why don't you form construction companies from the hundreds of civil engineering students graduating from Kenyan universities? Procure modern equipment and techniques to do high quality work for small and complex projects. You can enlist or buy medium-sized Western companies for a good price in this economy and bring in the best practices, work etiquette, and tech transfers instead of paying the Chinese companies the project costs. So, and this person goes ahead to say, when they exhaust the place, they will leave. Their predatory economics will kill the Kenyan economy. When they exhaust the place, they will live like locusts. Stupid and corrupt politicians can't think this through. They're busy stealing. So this is some very strong sentiments from someone on investment ideas here in Kenya.
So on that one, I think this is somebody who's actually trying to say in terms of the structures which the government has put in as much as the government wants to regulate, there are few people who still want to take the advantage of those resources. And that's where you find now with the county governments coming in, like, you know, the whole devolution process. So you find this is also an opportunity for the government to bring in the people in diaspora and let them know, hey, you know what, there's actually these projects happening from around the counties that you come from. How about you try and, you know, come together and actually bring those resources back to the counties. But you see now, before the structures were different because most of the corruption was happening from, you know, from the states and central government and all. But you see now the corruption is also being transferred to to county governments. So you see, this is something that the government is actually looking towards. I hope, and maybe we'll get to hear, you know, some good framework on the same.
Okay, let's talk about some investment options such as diaspora circles, which are some of the growing avenues of investments. I know when you were in Qatar, I know there's one called Kenya-Qatar Diaspora Circle that represents all the workers living and working in the Gulf countries. Was this something that you are also a part of, and how did you benefit from it?
Well, actually, when I was in Qatar, I was in that circle, and each being a new organization or circle, it has a fair share of its challenges, because you find, for an instance, we have like that minimal contribution you put in. And for the period that you're saving, when you're coming back home for, let's say, for the holidays, you want to come to the offices and check, you know, how much are my savings, you know, what are your projects, what are you intending to do with the projects. And initially, the circle was doing quite well, because they had launched a few projects, which was to go, like we had some projects in Gong, which was for real estate. We had some coming into, you know, petrol station business. We had also, we're trying to diversify others in agro farming. So it was a wide scope. Until now there was a bit of management shake-up, which really demoralized Kenyans in Qatar, and you find they do not have the same morale in terms of continuing on the saving of the same.
Okay, let me read again one more comment from someone here who says, haha, the irony is amazing. Hardworking Kenyans are the top foreign exchange earners for a country where its politicians steal all the billions and keep the citizens oppressed and in poverty. The diaspora should dictate democracy terms to the Kenyan government, or no remittances. Power game is on. This is...
Well, I understand the angle at which this particular person is saying, because yes, it's a good contribution that the people in diaspora play. They play a key role in even in the economy of the country, and that's where some of the proposals that we've like the people in diaspora have been submitting to the government. They also want to be involved in some of the key you know, functions of or ministries, some of the decision-making policies. For example, we want to have like the ministry that represents the diaspora. For example, stating this is how much, because you see some of these information we get them from the government stakeholders. For example, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is what gives the information of how much has come in, or how much of transactions are happening. And then we have the CBK coming in with the numbers in terms of the remittance and all. But we do not have a representative from the diaspora, other than, you know, like the ambassadorial position, the diplomats, who represent the government in the host key states. But when you have somebody representing people in diaspora in key government functions, for example, in the Ministry of Labor, you have somebody assigned for the diaspora functions, you find it brings about a sense of, you know, accountability as well as representation. You know, comes to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when you have people having problems with visa, But we do not have a voice, somebody in the ministry talking about, what, I represent the diaspora community, and I feel like this is something needs to be worked on, and giving about the proposals and the challenges that people in diaspora are facing.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you talk about the challenges that people in diaspora face, some here, such as relatives and friends, who often fail them by not executing their agreed upon instructions. Then there's unreliable means of investing back home. Some are limited control and accountability of our investments and money in Kenya. And then there's banks that impose stringent financial requirements, which are not only cost prohibitive, but make qualifications difficult. Was this also something that you experienced when you were abroad?
Well, I think mostly when it comes to the part of the transactions, you find there's all those regulations that the governments now come in, and you see there's the whole the bills that were passed about the money laundering, these laws that are able to curb money laundering, and you see the funds that go into funding terrorism and stuff. So the government here puts up the structures, but again, during the process, there's some people who actually transact quite huge amounts, and in some cases, it might not be well articulated that this is actually money being sent for development. And so you see some of these measures, in a way, curb the bigger menace, which in this case is terrorism, and the money laundering menace that affects the economy. But you see now, this is the point where the government or the representative of the diaspora comes in and says, as part of the people working in diaspora, we want to have like a committee that is able to go through some of these remittances. For example, I would say have this particular diaspora, Mr. X, and he's sending such a huge amount. So what are the proposals that we have? Because for example, this particular person would want to not feel not welcome to send money back home back to the economy, because they want to feel, okay, if I'm going to be sending money back to my host country, well, I also need to know, do you have the proper framework or the proper structures that I'm not going to be harassed every time I send money back home. So do you have this, some of these policies?
Okay. I'll read probably some two more comments. Again, it seems like corruption is really hindering some of these Kenyans who are abroad from investing back into the country, because someone here says, all the best to those investing. As for me, watching invest in the US, mahali niko, the corruption back home by the so-called leaders is crazy. I hope the real estate investment holds its value and the economy does well, so that all this is not in vain. And then someone here says availability of info to Kenyans abroad about investment opportunities in Kenya and usage of remittances from Kenyans in the diaspora. So just like that, we've come to the end of this conversation. Thank you for watching. Let's do this again, same time, same place next week, right here on Lookup TV. My name is Rachel Anyango. Have yourself a good night.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to views@look-up.tv. We can't wait to hear from you.